Let's get right into it. Number 5. The genie who granted too many wishes. In the 1960s, a psychologist named Georgy Lozanov developed a language learning method called Suggestopedia. The premise was wild. Students would achieve superhuman memory by entering a state of relaxed, concert-like receptivity. Baroque music, rhythmic breathing, and an authoritative teacher would supposedly unlock 95% of our untapped mental potential. And in a way, it worked. Students were memorizing vocabulary at an astonishing rate, up to 1,000 words a day. But the side effect wasn't in the data, it was in the teacher's lounge. The method required the instructor to adopt an almost cult leader level of charisma and authority, a role they had to psychologically inhabit. Reports surfaced of teachers struggling to switch off this persona. They began exhibiting signs of narcissistic personality disorder, becoming domineering and manipulative in their personal lives. The experiment didn't just teach language, it accidentally created a factory for mini-gurus. The very technique designed to unlock the student's mind ended up permanently locking the teacher's ego in the on position. They found the key to hyperlearning, but it came with a built-in trapdoor into a god complex. Number 4. The tickling machine of despair. What happens when you take a baby monkey from its mother and give it a choice between a cold wire mesh dispenser of food and a soft, terry cloth mother that provides no nourishment? This was the horrifyingly simple genius of Harry Harlow's infamous experiments in the 1950s. The results were clear and devastating. The monkeys spent nearly all their time clinging to the cloth mother, venturing to the wire mother only for sustenance. It was a monumental finding that proved the importance of love, comfort, and attachment over basic biological needs. It revolutionized childcare and psychology. It also created a generation of profoundly broken monkeys. The monkeys raised by the cloth mothers grew up to be deeply disturbed adults, rocking compulsively, self-mutilating, incapable of social interaction or mating. When some did become mothers, they were violently abusive or neglectful to their own offspring. The experiment that so perfectly demonstrated the need for love had, as its primary side effect, the total destruction of its subject's ability to ever feel or give it. Harlow proved his point by building a perfect, replicable hell, a cycle of trauma that echoed for generations in his lab. Number 3. The prison that built itself. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set up a simulated prison in the basement of Stanford University. He randomly assigned ordinary, well-adjusted male students to be either guards or prisoners. The plan was to run it for 2 weeks. It was shut down after 6 days. The experiment worked terrifyingly well. The participants dove headfirst into their assigned roles. The guards became tyrannical and sadistic, inventing humiliating tasks and punishments. The prisoners became passive, depressed, and rebelliously desperate. But the most disturbing side effect wasn't what happened to the students, it was what happened to the professor. Zimbardo, acting as the prison superintendent, became so engrossed in the experiment that he lost his ethical bearings. He failed to see the escalating abuse as a crisis, viewing it instead as compelling data. It took his future wife, psychologist Christina Maslach, to tour the facility and deliver the gut-punch reality check: what you are doing to those boys is a terrible thing. The study didn't just show how situations corrupt people, it demonstrated how the role of scientist can corrupt the scientist, blinding them to the human suffering right in front of their eyes in the name of research. Number 2. The man who couldn't unsee. In the late 1980s, Canadian psychologist Marilyn Landsberg conducted an experiment on negative thinking. The premise was simple. She had subjects practice identifying negative outcomes in various scenarios, training their brains to spot potential danger and failure. The goal was to see if this could improve real-world risk assessment. And it did. The subjects became excellent at pinpointing everything that could go wrong in any plan. The side effect? They became clinically depressed. By consciously directing their focus towards the negative, they had effectively manually rewired their own default thought patterns. They couldn't turn it off. The world, once full of neutral or even positive possibilities, was now a landscape of perpetual threat and inevitable failure. The experiment was a success, but the participants were left with a poisoned worldview, requiring extensive therapy to learn how to see the world without the experimental filter of doom. They were given a tool for survival and accidentally used it to dismantle their own will to live. Number 1. The ultimate price of obedience. In the early 1960s, a Yale psychologist named Stanley Milgram placed an ad for a study on memory and learning. You, the participant, show up and are assigned the role of teacher. Your job is to administer electric shocks to a learner, a pleasant middle-aged man strapped into a chair in the next room, every time he gets a word pair wrong. A man in a lab coat assures you, the shocks may be painful, but they are not dangerous. As the learner makes more mistakes, the shock level increases. At 75 volts, you hear a grunt.
At 120, he complains.
At 150, he demands to be released. At 285 volts, you hear an agonized scream, followed by an eerie, terrifying silence.
You want to stop. You protest.
But the impassive experimenter tells you, the experiment requires that you continue. This was Milgram's famous obedience study. The shattering result was that about 65% of ordinary people continued to the highest, potentially lethal 450-volt level, obeying the authority figure despite the apparent torture they were inflicting. The experiment worked. It proved its terrifying thesis about human obedience. But the most disturbing side effect was the psychological carnage it left in its wake. Participants, who believed they were capable of murdering a stranger, experienced violent fits of nervous laughter during the experiment, and many suffered profound psychological trauma afterward. They had been forced to confront a monstrous capacity for obedience within themselves, a self-knowledge that for many was unbearable. Milgram proved his point by showing people the abyss inside them, and for some, a part of them fell in. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.